Today we're with Mike Woodcock again from Absolute Sound in Chatham, Ontario, Canada. And today we're going to actually try to redo the recording we meant to do some while back. And we're going to talk about a few interesting things that hopefully the audience will think are interesting. So, Mike, as I always do, I will leave the floor to you. So introduce what you think you want to talk about here.
Sure, I will do. And good morning, TLP Audio in Chicago. Walt, how are you?
Thank you very much. Nice to see you.
You're welcome. Nice to see you. In support of Angela-Gilbert Yeung, we both admire, and as the entire industry does, especially the very, very edge people of performance, love what this man and dual personality man woman do. A true artist and a great maker of hi-fi.
So you know, I see you have one of the music pumps there. So
this is a lady's shoe.
Yeah, we were actually involved. In fact, we provided the shoes at the time, and right. We actually sold those on TLP Audio for a while back in the day. Seems like only yesterday, but I think it was somewhere in the early 2000s. So go right ahead.
Beautiful shoes. Italian, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Well, they're Spain, but that's close to
Spain.
Italy.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're coming west.
Yeah, close enough.
All right. Well, these things, as we know in audio, we're used to 40 years of steel boxes and brushed aluminum fronts and lights and bells and whistles and things that look upscale or really expensive or things that are pretty for our eyes, which, as we all know, Walt, you and I, that does absolutely nothing for sound. And this was made because Gilbert has a beautiful artist mind, and he decided that he wanted to prove a point in a fashion that's a beautiful lady's shoe. You could light this up. This is actually a mono amplifier. You'll see a toroidal transformer. That's the main AC transformer, which are wall power. And right next to it, directly next to it, is the signal line stage with some capacitance energy, direct current energy, that feeds this. On the bottom of this heatsink, there's an op amp output. So you've got power supply, line stage, and output all within an inch of each other. And the reason, here's a signal. There's a signal input here. You can see in the back, a little RCA terminal, and the speaker wire also is attached directly to the output. When you do something like this, your noise floor and your quality of sound for music is immeasurably enhanced as compared to this being laid out in a box. Because of its proximity, the energy doesn't deplete by the time it fills in. So in electrical energy or music stereo systems making audio, you want that first 2 milliseconds to 20 milliseconds to get off with a good first step. It's our impact, how it starts to create the sound, and then how it fills in is how much energy is close and sustained. So this, not only is it beautiful ergonomically and different, because Gilbert used to say, well, why are we looking at steel boxes for 40 years? And I understand that. We can look at something beautiful or anything, but this also proved a point in proximity and efficiency of energy, music handling, and output with the least amount of connections and wires. And it makes sense. The plug is actually right there on the transformer, as you can see. The plug plugs on the shoe. So there was a pair of these, and they were done in, I think, 2008. And these have an op amp that many in the uber high-end industry have used in them, and they're wonderful, elegant sounding things. They're very detailed and open. They make very little to no mistake. They're quiet as a church mouse in operation. They're just like an experiment gone right. And there's been so many experiments that, would be a factory up there is like Disneyland, watching Gilbert walk around and make everything by his hand alone. No employees, no nothing. This is like the 20s manufacturing. So this came to the shows. I think you saw them in the Chicago shows in 2008 and forward that displayed and played music, and they play with this op amp about 21, 22 watts per channel, which is more than enough when their watts are this good and supported this well. It's people think they need 100 watts. You really don't need much wattage if the wattage that you're using isn't losing energy and it's supported with the right power supply.
So is there a reason that you're telling us about these now, since they've been off the market for a while? Is Angela-Gilbert coming out with a new version?
Well, I went to the factory during COVID, and Angela was there, and Angela used to only show up, which is the dual personality, the female persona of Gilbert Yeung. And I said, well, why isn't she running the company with it? She's the artist, she's the beauty, and everything you see without walls. There's no boundaries in the way that Angela-Gilbert Yeung products made. I said, don't ask me what to do anymore. Just achieve to your finest potential for sound. Go wherever you want to go, and I'll support you, and let her run the company with him. So in other words, both of them out front. It's Angela-Gilbert Yeung isn't bipolar. It's the dual personality is always there. So you don't end up with, oh, it's this person that day and that person another day, or whatever it feels like. They're always both together, and it's such an asset to see things from both male and female persona, both artist and analytical engineer type, all in one person operating. So I supported it and said, let's go. There's no boundaries. I'll block for you so that you don't get bothered too much. I don't want somebody to ask Picasso to paint their front door brown. I want you to be the artist that you are, and no limits. So I saw these in the factory, which I call it's a museum. There's another museum that has every piece of product you can imagine for 50 years. All the notable hi-fi brands have been seen, taken apart, looked at, checked design, reverse engineered. It's how you learn. You look at what everybody else does, plus you have your own ideas, and you come up with a soup that has more in it than any other soup before. So that's something in my 45 years of doing this every day that I said, boy, I want to get right beside that. So I said, continue. We'll keep going on this road. And we came up with this year's version, which is a new product. We had funky ranges. And funky, I mean, this looks pretty funky, Walt. There's a pair of shoes together.
Oh, that's pretty cool. That's a stereo amp.
Basically, yes, it's two monoblocks sitting on a cookie can beside it. Now, people would go, what's all that? And there's a presentation here. We have up on the front, we have a lot of silicone art, for lack of a better word. And we've got more capacitance or direct current energy to support the signal path. So these perform even higher than the old ones do. And you'll see this cookie can underneath. Well, that's so that we can fill the bottom with capacitance. And it bears the original Blue Circle mark, which is the legacy of Blue Circle Audio, as well. Gilbert Yeung, for 30 some plus years, has run Blue Circle and is one of the bleeding edge performers in the best audio, minimalist in design. Only the functions that are on it are necessary. No extras, no waste, close proximity, very few to little circuit boards, absolutely no push on connectors. Everything's lead hand soldered. I mean, this stuff is done with 3 builds up of each solder joint, so it's fast. It vectors, or like a connection for a light could be my finger touching there, and it's fine. But a good ball joint where you haven't let the solder drip and all the metal particles go to the bottom of the solder, you're really kind of creating a fuse. It's not good for inductive pulsing music, which is what music's doing. It's changing its amplitude, its amount of energy constantly.
Well, let me
matter. So anyway, this, what were you going to say there? Well,
no, I just wanted to say that, and I'm trying to remember where I saw the article. I saw an article this week, and you were talking about the solder and how that the soldering connections, how that can affect the sound. And I read an article this week. There was a new article. And the title was something like, there are still things in audio that you can't measure. Okay. And
like
that's one of them. Okay. And there are other things. I mean, they're still trying to figure out how to measure what people hear. And no one has been able to figure that out yet. So you can respond to that,
it seems all vague, and it seems like there's a lot of physics and stuff into it, and there is. And in its basics, there's no perfect. When you win one in electronics, you lose one.
Yeah.
So it's a teeter-totter. There's no perfect. So it's juggling everything you see as you see the world of signal coming in, collecting and harnessing it, cleanly, sniffing it out so it doesn't have noise. Get the noise floor signal noise as good as you can. Get it out. Give it abundant energy, because we don't know how much resistance, depending on the complexity of the signal, is going to be on the other end that says, no, I don't want this. Speakers impede. Impede's not a good word. Resistors resist. Resist isn't a good word. These things happen in an electrical circuit. And if you try to measure something like THD and all that stuff, yes, most THD specs beyond 0.1%, we can't hear whatsoever. And if you tell somebody it has a certain wattage at a certain spec of THD, that's like going to Monaco and seeing a race car and then F1 at 220 miles an hour. Take a photo and show it to somebody that's never seen a car and go, tell me how good that thing drives.
Right. How does it handle?
Picture.
Yeah.
All right, you just told me what one tree on Tuesday morning in a forest is doing, but music's a forest of trees on the move in the wind and the rain, and there's thousands of them.
Right.
So it's hard to put a finger on that. And the other thing about a circuit is electrical circuits are sensitive. We're dealing with signal coming into these little jackies at the back are 100 millivolts. That's faint. Yeah. So when we attach a scope to it or monitors and stuff, we're actually altering the circuit because of the load of the instrument that's trying to read it. So there's all kinds of little calculations you can make, and we can't seem to get every single connection all monitored at the same time, because we're touching it and altering it, and then we want to see what it's doing. Well, we only know what it's doing at certain points. We can only take pictures. We can't see something in operation. We can't see like a live video for our ears for a test for sound. That's never been done yet. We haven't got a piece of electronics complex enough to read all that. No one's come up with the perfect item. And you know what? Truthfully, I don't think there's any money in it, and it boils down to that.
Well, I think that's what it really is. It's the money.
Yeah, I'm sure that you could get guys that would pursue that for 10 or 20 years and come up with something. But there is no reason to do it because there's no demand for it. You have to boldly go on audio alone.
Yeah.
The market is the market. So when you look at something like that, and you've got so many ways to make a circuit. You do solid state, you got tube, you got, all kinds of different parts from all kinds of different companies. You've got these things called audiophile parts. Well, audiophile parts and different things, you're making such small numbers. None of that works. If you really put your head to the common sense of it, you'll realize that someone with an open mind is going to create the most effective thing. And someone that follows the fundamentals of electrical energy flowing, simplicity. Less is always more. Start from there. And that's kind of the premise of Gilbert and Angela would build things that are super safe, well laid out, that anyone could work on. And I don't know why, because nothing's ever broken in 30 years. And it looks inside like it never, ever will. It's nice to see this. And it was refreshing for me. And as soon as I saw it, I want to get right beside it for obvious reasons. And all the customers, let's say the driver, the motive of a Gilbert Yeung never has the decision-making been based on any profit.
Well, and being so close to the mountain, as it were, you actually have the ability to sell some things there that I don't. Like, I don't have access to the Funkies because we're primarily an online store here at TLP Audio. So the only thing that we can really sell are the what I would call, I guess, the standard Angela-Gilbert products. But
and they're very good.
Yeah. Well, yes, they're fantastic, and I had an opportunity to hear many of those myself when I visited the mountain back in May. So that was a very worthwhile trip. Plus, I got to meet you in person, and that was nice to spend some time at your store. But all that being said, you have access to these things that are called Funkies, and so is when you find something that Angela-Gilbert wants to turn into a Funky, how does that work? Where do you get the basis for each one of those?
Sometimes on the road, disbanded, discarded electronics that are all broken and unrepairable. Anything.
Okay. So sometimes they come into your store.
When you're dealing with a artist genius type mind, and what happens is every time they break something, they see that as a new creation. They don't see it as a negative. There are no negatives when you're dealing with that. So the funky line created because I bought my first amplifier from Angela-Gilbert Yeung for $8,000. It was the best amplifier I'd ever heard in my life and continues to be one of the finest things. All of our products that I see made in the factory, and I've overseen tons of them. I spent 2 years at the factory, and then I was doing double Mondays. Every second Monday, I was in the factory all day long and just learning and going through things. And it took me from a 43 level where I was high to really high. Corrected, of course. A lot of things I misconstrued because I read online, I read reviewer stuff, I read all these journalist things. And frankly, it wasn't qualified, and I didn't know what to do. I was like, okay, well, this sounds better, they say, but it really doesn't. And I went into a store, and I go into a store and a $2,000 audio and a $5,000 audio system. The one was just louder or bassier than the other one. It wasn't really better, and oftentimes it was worse. So I was starting to find, oh, well, simplistic two-way speakers were better than a lot of the towers, and so on. We had complications in trying to do too much. To do something right in the beginning and expand on that is the right path. But marketing would denote that we have to have a $1,000 speaker that's a bookshelf, and then we're going to have a $3,000 tower, and then we're going to have a $13,000 ultimate tower. And that just doesn't make any sense to me. And it doesn't make any sense to anyone else either. So when I saw Funkies, I said, Gilbert, at 8,000, we're going back to my amplifier price. I told him back at the start of COVID, I said, you have to be able to reach someone for less than that. I said, can you build my $8,000 amplifier for 4,000 mark? I just threw a target, and I got the wide eyeballs. I don't even like what you just said. Okay. But then I left, and 6 weeks later, there was this creation there, and it had a beautiful artistic plastic front and steel case like the Blue Circle Audio did. Same cage size, same parts inside it, other than from a Shelco extremely expensive audio control to a very good Elves. But the price point was reachable, and it still had the sound quality of a $20,000, $30,000 amp for $4,000. I'm all for that. Away we went. I said that, 6 months later, because I'm pushing the envelope to try and get people that can't afford this. Even wrapping your head around $4,000 is a lot of money. So I said, can you build something for beginners, for starting audio people that love music? I'm not talking audiophiles, because the atypical audiophile thing we've all known from years and years is to buy front-looking, upscale-looking, wonderful, beautiful things that we make an audio shrine in front of ourselves and sit between the two speakers and just look at it. We wanted people to have the musical performance of uber high-end hi-fi for pennies. Hence comes Funky. Gilbert said to me, Angela said to me, can I do whatever I want? And I said, absolutely. You'd never have to ask me for direction on any choice in manufacturing. My hands are off that. I do not have the creative, wonderful mind you do, but I will support it. So she began to find refuse gear, audio, old receivers. Say you find something, and repairman hats, and I had lots of them. I do repairs here. I've done repairs for 35 years. And I have all these old cases that we can't get stuff for. Lots and lots of these things happen because companies stop making the parts that are available, or they don't make the board parts, or the board's made in a way that I can't get the part off and solder it without breaking the board. So we have to throw it out. So we would recycle everything inside and leave ourselves with an empty case. That would allow Gilbert to do artistic work, paint, nice presentation. And we've had 35 years of new parts laying around that Gilbert had purchased. Because when you hand manufacture by just two hands, you need to have every part available. And some of the companies won't continue to make. So we have a transformer, for instance, like this. And the company that makes this transformer now doesn't make it any longer. Well, we might have 6 or 10 of these things. It has nothing to do with it. They're brand new, beautiful hi-fi parts. Same with line stages, outputs, heat sinks, you name it. So she decided, listen, well, if I can sign these things and put art on them, I'll build you small. The first Funkies are like $1,500 Canadian, and they'll beat my $6,000 integrated amps from name brand companies easily. It's not even close. They'll hand people to us. Say, here's a Funky and here's a whatever from a known hi-fi company, and we have them all. And they go, well, this one sounds broken compared to the other one. So that's what would happen. And then I would see that they were signed, and this beautiful artistic art. If you look at them, everything that Angela-Gilbert does has a meaning, or it draws you in. So they were very interesting. And the fact that they're signing the admiration from the customers, they buy these things. Well, 1500 will get you between 21 watts and 35 watts of power on an integrated amp, 3 inputs on it. So say you had CD streaming or a DAC, which would have tape, you name it. We don't need a lot of inputs in an amplifier anymore because a DAC, a digital to analog converter that we have that, it's going to improve the signal, can have every source plugged into it. First, that's digital. And then you just need one for analog, whether that be phono, reel to reel, whatever you happen to have for analog, you go into another input.
So let me ask you a question here, and that question is: you mentioned all the mainstream products that you sell. You said you have them all, and that to me that means that you must have audio reps that stop in your store sometime and talk to you. So do you ever get any pushback from them when they see you talking about what's inside their products?
Most of those reps are 20 or plus year lifers, and they come in and it's just admiration. Okay. My Absolute Sound said one thing when I started this, and I was started at 19. I'm 57 years old, and it's been open from that day forward in the fall of 85. I took and said to the reps that came in, it's very simple to get in my store. My job is to protect my customers. So all you have to do at a price point, $6,000 amplifier, receiver, whatever it might be, beat the one I have. Protect my people. Either make it safer, make it better, make it stronger for the same money, and make it sound better musically. If you can do that, you displace the other one. So everyone that comes in with rep knows that industry companies have buildings, they have tons of employees, they have legals, they have worldwide marketing budgets, right? You have promotions, you have reviews that you got to build and send out. You've got social media that you've got to populate. These are all huge expenses, and they don't admit any of them. We pay for them all. And when the Angela-Gilbert makes, it's one set of expert hands, not secondary labor that doesn't know what they're doing, that have to plug stuff in. No help from another company that built 3/4 of it so I could just assemble it and stick it in a box. This is one person making by his and her hands alone. That's an expert. Puts it together and has, what's the overhead? It'd be the cost of operating the factory itself, a solo factory, an interkip, Angela-Gilbert Yeung's personal labor wage, and the parts cost. That's pretty low.
Yeah.
So well, what represents, like these shoes sold for $1,100 Canadian. Yeah. Well, I don't think I could buy the part for half of that to do in total to get everything the way I wanted it and the shoes. Yeah. I don't know what do the shoes retail for?
We sell those shoes for around $100 a pair US. So.
Yeah. So you add all this up, and you're like, how does he even think about doing that? Like,
well, yeah, and I think
it's a gift to hi-fi.
Well, we've talked before, and I think one of the things that you said that appealed to me was doing things the way Angela-Gilbert does is not a working business model for other companies.
It's not a working business model. If your motivation is the love of music and to make people cry and get goosebumps, and a profit that you make therein is just residual, and it's small at that, but residual of doing something really well and enjoying pushing the bleeding edge envelope right to the edge and keep going. To watch Angela-Gilbert Yeung in the factory operate is to see the hand of somebody that each joint they make with the soldering iron they appear as creation. I mean, she took 1 minute and 44 seconds 6 months ago. I told you about this when we spoke face to face, to make one output terminal connection and build up 3 layers of solder that didn't drip. So solid, dense ball, metal particles. You know, when you solder, it's liquid. The heavy stuff goes to the bottom. Yeah. Like your signal's coming over, goes down, collects, comes back up, goes over. And the rest is, the flux and the filler of the solder. You get some of the medical particles everywhere, but the density of them is at the bottom. If you keep them high in a ball and you make them where the line is, it'll start to vector, like ants pushing through. I just figured like ants getting through a bowling ball. Well, when they break in and get through, it sounds wonderful. So I just want to talk back to the Funkies for a second. So we had the Funky line. We had a target, that 1500 for the 2. We also have a 2500 target, which are larger transformers, larger output, often 30 through 65 watts. Some of these have balanced transformers in line now, I've seen, which is an amazing thing that, because we have 2 transformers that are too high voltage. We want to step them down. put them together, get them the voltage we want, and we're stronger. So that each one of these funkies is a one of a kind. And all of them are the most amazing listening experiences ever because they're so pure. So if I walk you through, you saw the shoes and the proximity, and then this one we go with has more capacitance, larger heat sinks, same type of single op amp on each side, about 27 watts of power. You'll see on the back of it the power plug. So you can see it's the AC, an on-off switch, and you see a little blue thing there, and that's a Nutrix PowerCon. It's a connector, and that connector, I don't know if I can show you how it connects, but that allows us to do these things. So inside here, let's take a look at this. Now that is nearly 500,000 microfarads, half a farad. It's a ton of energy. You'll see circuits in there, which are timing circuits for soft start, for it to start slowly. An arrangement of caps with some flash caps and regular caps that have different characteristics and touch the signal in a different way. So this, when I say signal, this is just energy. This is direct current energy that's here. And it's on 14.2 Romax rails, not on a circuit board, and it's handmade perfectly. And people will say, well, what's all this goop? And that's 40 durometer silicone. It's very soft. Well, one of the components of everything that's in music is vibration. People spend thousands on stands to get their components isolated so vibration doesn't attack them while they're in motion or operating. This is doing it at the source. So this might seem like a DIY little thingy you do inside there, but it's hand-whipped 40 durometer silicone that's enhancing sound.
Well, let me, while you're talking here, just let you know we're getting the dreaded countdown here from Zoom. So we got about 5 minutes here. So I'll try to find a way to edit this out of the video.
So here you've got your power connector. So right now I just changed this from a $5,000 sounding amplifier to a $10,000 sounding amplifier. And this thing isn't $5,000 or $10,000. This piece with dual mono in it now has over 600,000 microfarads of capacitance in it. And we've changed it drastically. So this amplifier now, when we do one, we have 4 different sizes of these. So you can add on. So you're not outdating when you buy anything from Gilbert Yeung, Angela-Gilbert Yeung. You've got the ability to upgrade it exponentially. And that's true for any of our products. So this will also go in every amplifier we make. That means the voltage rails were considered and constructed in the ways that they match. It's not a good business plan, but it's wonderful for the customer.
Well, what we found is, and what you know is absolutely true, which is with anything that Angela-Gilbert Yeung builds, there's an upgrade path, and with other products, there generally is none. So when you buy one of the Angela-Gilbert products, you have a place to go in the future, and I think that's a cool thing. So this last product that you want to talk about here is the matching preamp.
Yeah. So obviously, if that's a straight power amp, we have to have a preamplifier of some kind. And Gilbert thought, with shoes, what better idea than to have a purse artistically done, as you can see. And you'll see 3 inputs across the top, left and right inputs, 1, 2, 3. You'll see left and right output, single-ended RCA jacks, a volume control, a neat little volume control. You just touch with your finger. It's a wonderful volume control. Everything in close proximity again. So the preamplifier lines aren't long. We don't have the least amount of loss we can get. And then simple selection for the inputs, 1, 2, 3. On the side of this purse, and these parts inside there, they have one of our best signal boards. In fact, our signal board that goes in our $3,000 preamp is in here. It's a quad drive, beautiful laid out circuit board, handmade by Gilbert Yeung. And then it has, I think, 150,000, 200,000 microfarads of capacitance in the line stage, which is more than some 200-watt amplifiers have. So we're doing things that are tens and hundreds and thousands of times more than the industry would ever require because we can afford to. We have an overhead. And the power supply that goes in here, you'll see a little power supply, which is made, and it has the power plug. So you got to plug it in. And in this PVC pipe inside is a brass assembly that holds the main structure of the power supply. It's beautifully built, safe as can be. And this plugs in a conduit, an XLR, into either side of the purse. And that's neat. I looked at it first. I said, what's the other side? Well, she said, well, you can put our capacitor packs in it. This is your main power supply, and it has exponentially good direct current energy, lots of capacitance. So tons to charge it, plus what's inside here. Oh, yeah, you can upgrade it like we do all our things. So any of our, both in steel and or PVC, this is something that used to be in Gilbert Yeung products. Remember the pipe series of phonopreamp called phone?
Yep.
Well, this now can plug into, this is 500,000 microfarads at the voltage that we want. 500,000, that's a lot. And we just add it to the side of this signal path here, click it in. And now I've changed this to sound like a $1,000 to a $5,000 preamp, because the energy's filling in holes in the music. And it's incalculable how much energy you can use. The energy that's tons enough.
Well, Mike, I really wanted to want to thank you for your time today, and I think there's a lot of information here, and I think the next time we do one of these, maybe we can pick the space where we stopped and start part 2 of this video. So do you think that would work for you? Is there enough information? Okay, good. Good.
The more we can help people understand, that's kind of why we do these things, to get them to look at things the right way, and or a way that's pure and simple, and so that they aren't, taken advantage of. That would be a bad word, but informed in a way where marketing leads you to make a buying decision based on marketing instead of based on the reality of performance.
Well, I think the videos that we've done, and along with the videos that other people have done regarding the Angela-Gilbert products, I think they kind of speak for themselves. All we're really interested in doing is providing information for people to make good decisions. That's all.
Yeah, and get ladies involved in audio.
Well, that's right. That's right.
And get people to have fun with audio. It's supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be, oh, you're going to sit in front of an audio shrine and really bear down on the sound of that brass. Are you kidding? You're supposed to tap your foot and have a laugh.
That's right.
Love the music.
Well, Mike, thank you again very much for your time. I appreciate this. Cheers. And we'll do this again very soon. Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome. Take care, Walt.
Yep.